Welcome to the 611 Films podcast. My name is David Groves as one of your hosts, and with me as always,
Neil McKay, what is happening?
what's going on? Back on video, second episodes of the third season.
Somehow we got it uploaded to YouTube, and I think it worked.
I think it worked, yeah.
Somehow.
We'll keep going. We'll keep trying. See what's up.
We'll keep going until it doesn't.
I remember you mentioning to me too, like I had those blue blocker glasses on, that last one. I was like, oh, it's so distracting. Like you could see the screen through them. I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah, and I didn't even catch it till the end, and I was like, you can see the reflection of the screen, so don't have like porn on there.
Yeah. You mentioned that first. So I was like, oh crap, I do need to minimize all that if in case it gets boring, and I need to start just watching porn just in case.
You just have all your computer passwords and social security number and
everything's just open, just for everyone to see.
Yeah.
But today we are going to get into practical effects, CGI, VFX, all that good stuff. Technology's changed quite a bit. Not even in just the last 10 years, 15 years with Hollywood movie making with that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. There was old Twilight Zone episodes in the 50s where they tried, or maybe it was the early 60s, where they tried to do video. And if you look at video then versus what you could do in the 90s, it's essentially the same. What it looks like in the technology is the same. It just became cheaper. Mm-hmm. But what prosumer consumer product would look like from the late 90s to now is just crazy. You could almost, they are shooting movies with iPhones if you get the lighting right and everything. Sure. And it looks pro, the advent of HD and everything. So it's just wild how the pendulum is swung.
Oh yeah, and not to cut you off, but I was even thinking that I was like, my iPhone right now is about 3.5 years old, and it's a dinosaur. It's the old iPhone 8, and I was thinking, since we were talking about another project, maybe come 2023, sure, we'll use actual digital video camera, digital film, a Red, Alexa, Blackmagic, whatever that might be, but it's always hey man, the iPhone 14, which will likely come out in, October or so, could have 8K video, I'm hearing.
And that'd be wild. Just something that you have in the palm of your hand. And that's kind of what made me think of this whole, yesteryear technology versus today. Because I saw something posted on some site, where they do funny videos or something. And it was something, I guess, from 10 or 15 years ago, where this guy caught his girlfriend cheating on him or whatever, but he was using one of those flip phones to record the video, and it looks like it's shot by a potato, it's just all blocky and just nuts. Now, at the time, let's say it was 2008 or something like that, you could get pretty good video cameras and make things look good, but nobody's lugging those things around. These were the first. What he had was really the first cameras that had video. And so having something like an iPhone that can shoot HD or whatever and actually look good video that you can just pull out of your pocket and just, record whatever you're doing. That's only 10 years old, really, 12 years old at the most. So that just didn't exist. And then, I saw these comments on the video, what the hell was he shooting with? And it's I think people forget, we didn't have any of this stuff, years ago. You couldn't just take pictures and video with your phone. You had to have an actual camera or an actual video camera to do this stuff. So it's just, if we're going to talk about VFX and CGI, it's kind of you got to go, whoa, how much has things changed for the consumer or the prosumer versus and then you got the professional, what multi-million-dollar movies are using 30 years ago versus today, and it's just it's crazy. And I think, I don't know. Not to be one of those people that's back when the times were simpler. But I think people do need to have an appreciation of the fact that good or bad, the things that you can do now versus what you could do then. And if you're watching a movie especially, you and I are taking advantage of the technology as filmmakers. But when you see something that was an indie movie that looked good back in the 90s, that was extremely hard to do because they didn't have, iPhone technology or any of that stuff. Even on, the cameras that weren't in $1 million Panavision Hollywood, film cameras. So there's that appreciation of what you could accomplish back then. And that's, I think, one of the talking points for today is just the CGI that looked good back in the day. I mean, now it's like easy to make something, whatever you want. You want to make a planet explode? No problem. But like 30, 40 years ago, you couldn't do that.
Yeah. Again, we like the idea of the practical effects and then using the CGI or visual effects to kind of enhance that. But a lot of things also still have used CGI. Like, I guess my argument to you was when we were thinking about this idea of the podcast, is like, nothing has really changed except for how far you can go with the amount of money you have for a movie. Like, Marvel still does its thing and has been able to do its thing, and CGI and a lot of visual effects has been able to be like done really well because you have a team of 1,000 people working on it. But then you look at like Sharknado on Sci-Fi, or you look at something really low budget, and you're like, okay.
You can just throw a shit ton of money at something. That doesn't mean it's going to be good, or you're going to have the best special effects, in the world.
Right.
And it's like, and if you're relying on that, I mean, that's kind of this whole thing here. It's like, what kind of movie are you doing? And if you're relying on CGI, just like you could have a shitty movie that relies on car crashes, and it's like, okay, that's fun and all, but if you got no story, who cares? But it's like, what are you putting in? What are you sinking the money into, and then why? Like, a lot of people were shitting on that Morbius movie because the CGI looked weird, and you compare that with another movie, I don't know, like some of the older Marvel movies, like you were saying, that used the effects, the CGI. I don't know if it was more sparingly, but they used it for better looking effects.
Well, yeah, it's like a more practical.
Or they're using practical effects, and they're combining it so it looks more realistic. Like, and I get what they're saying, because it's like, when I see Jared Leto's face turn into the vampire, like, I know that's phony. I know that's not real. Like, it's like, whereas like you see it, and I mean, this is dated, but like American Werewolf in London, where they were doing like stop motion and taking pictures, and they made it like they were doing the same thing in kind of The Thing, the John Carpenter, where they were using like, and that's real, like that's really the dude's face. These are really like real actual things. And I know, I mean, comparing that to like, a modern day CGI movie is,
well, like even having the prosthetics
time,
that people used to use, like for the most part.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm saying. When I see somebody done up in the werewolf makeup, and I know that werewolves don't exist, but when I see that, to me that fools me into thinking that's more real than just seeing it like a CGI effect. Because I can tell, they're morphing his face. Like, it's not like actually on his face. They're just doing a digital mock-up.
And doesn't that go,
they're drawing
like, doesn't that kind of go back, I know you're a big Star Wars geek, big fan, love it. I know a lot of now people that love Star Wars, the old school, even with the stuff that Lucas was doing. I mean, back in the day, it was like, yeah, but you still had to do the animatronics, the droids, the Jabba the Hutt. You had to do that and then utilize the miniatures, utilize that stuff. But then when he went in to do, Phantom Menace and the prequels and all that, that's where it really started to be like, oh, but we don't need to do all that. We can just be in a studio all day. And it's like, you're losing something there.
Right. And then it was, of course, the big conversation when the Phantom Menace came out in 99, which people maybe they remember, maybe they don't. But they were kind of saying, yeah, you kind of need those animatronic, Yoda and the puppets and the actual costumes. You can't just CGI Chewbacca. You need a person in that suit doing that thing, because then it looks more lifelike. Sprinkling the CGI for the effect, but they were just doing the whole production design. It's like is just a cartoon basically, and then there's all the characters are CGI. And now you mentioned Jabba the Hutt, and I have to this is we've talked about Psycho, the remake of Psycho, which I think is one of the biggest cinema sins of all time. The Jabba the Hutt scene that George Lucas put in. There was a 1997 re-release of the original Star Wars, because he could do all the special effects better than the 77 one. And he threw this scene in, and I'm sure all the Star Wars fans know exactly what I'm talking about. But so they re-release it, and it did. There was some stuff that looked just better, like it just looked cleaner or something. You could just tell it was a little rough around the edges. The effects weren't as good. But the idea was Jabba the Hutt wasn't in the first one. But they had a scene, they filmed a scene with him in it, and they thought that this matte technology where they could replace like an actor with this Jabba the Hutt thing later, and the technology wasn't there, so they just scrapped it. And it ended up working better as a story for the story, because then you had this kind of like, ooh, who's this Jabba the Hutt guy? And he doesn't show up till the third movie. And meanwhile, you hear Han Solo talking about it, in the first two movies. So it story-wise, it worked. They didn't need that scene.
Right.
But then he goes in and he's like, well, let's re-release Star Wars with better effects. And then he sticks that scene back in with the Jabba the Hutt,
like CGI, fully CGI
thing.
Yeah.
And it looks, it's a fully CGI Jabba the Hutt. So it looks terrible. It doesn't look like the animatronic Jabba the Hutt. And then the way they filmed it, like it's basically like Han Solo has to step on his tail to get around him. And it's just ridiculous. It's almost like comedy. And now you've taken all of the setup for this grisly villain character, in the third movie, and now it's like he's a joke. And it's like, and you didn't need it, and it was in George Lucas's best interest not to have the technology where it was in the 70s, because if he could use it back then, it would have been. He would just ruin the whole character and the whole mystique of it.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at that, it's just like, thanks, George Lucas. Like, I don't know. I look at it as like, I applaud moving technology forward. I do. I mean, we've had that argument too before, where it's like film versus digital. We still have the outliers that are going to be the Quentin Tarantinos, the Christopher Nolans, maybe Scorsese. I don't know if he did that on his last one. Maybe he's doing it now where he's just using digital. But, it's sort of like you kind of got to move with the times a little bit, but that's a reliance. Like James Cameron, too, I'm just like, maybe I just didn't like the first Avatar, but he also was that guy where it's like he was such a pioneer of doing the animatronics and mixing that CGI visual effects that it works so well with each other. And now it's just nope, it's Avatar. It's all just make believe, and nothing looks real at all.
And he comes up too, because it's like, Lucas couldn't do what he wanted to do in the 70s, and then had to wait a while, and then that's what happened with James Cameron for the Avatar things. And I didn't mind. Avatar was fun and all, but I do know what you mean when you watch that movie and you just feel like the whole thing's a giant cartoon, because it's like none of this is real. It's all CGI. Whereas Terminator 2 and Titanic were so groundbreaking because they were using like set pieces and miniatures, and then they were using this like, I don't know what the hell, liquid stuff for T2, and then that was like realistic or practical with CGI, and it was just crazy. But it was like it wasn't just like drawn on,
right?
And that's the thing where I don't care what time frame you were in. Like even when Avatar came out, I know that was top of the line technology, but you could still tell what I'm watching is not real, because the whole movie relies on this technology, and they're not sprinkling in the real stuff that is actually physically tangible and there.
Yeah.
And then there's the argument too with like you're doing your actors a disservice, because they're just standing in front of a green screen reacting to who the hell knows what, or they're wearing some ridiculous suit, some motion capture thing, and they're digitizing, like, what do you got? Benedict Cumberbatch is crawling around trying to be a dragon in that Hobbit movie. And I'm not knocking Benedict Cumberbatch, but he just looks ridiculous in this getup. And then they just digitize him into a dragon later. And then you got poor Martin Freeman trying to like he's just looking at Benedict Cumberbatch crawling around, like pretending he's a dragon, and he's got to do lines with this guy. Right. And it's like, how do you do that as an actor? It's just like, it just seems so silly, like to not have that thing to react to.
I think it's obviously something that I don't think would ever change. Like, there's never going to be that big VFX shot where you actually had, you needed an army in a Gladiator or a Ben-Hur or whatever, big thing where it was just people, and you had to get 1,000 people and pay them whatever it was to be there, because now you can just digitize them, and it is, I guess, cheaper.
Yeah.
But then you look at something to the effect of, like you said, with the Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if Peter Jackson was able to take that technology with even the first Lord of the Rings. We're just reliant on it, and it doesn't make the stories better. It doesn't make the characters better. And it almost makes it so that they it's such a spectacle, though. Like you said, like with Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch, speaking of him, or something to like the effect of like other Marvel movies. Like when I was doing some research on this episode, I was thinking like, even with Iron Man, the first one, and Captain America, of course, he doesn't have big special powers. He's not he's not, Doctor Strange. He's not Scarlet Witch. He's not that. But they did such a great job of having real people doing real things. And yeah, the editing I could get into really heavily. But you know what I'm saying? It's just like, now the world of Marvel is just this fantasy world. It is like Pandora. It is like Star Wars. Like, nothing is really real. It's all just fake.
It is getting that way, and not just Marvel, but a lot of these movies are so they just think, oh well, we got millions of dollars and this is the top of the line technology. We can make somebody's face morph into something, or we can create fireballs out of somebody's hands, or whatever the case may be. Like I think we talked a few podcasts ago about the Firestarter remake, where it's like, ooh, we have better effects. Let's do that. But from what I hear, the story was terrible. I think it's considered a terrible remake, even despite the fact that the effects supposedly look better. And this is what I would argue with that Firestarter. If you compared it to the '80s version, where they actually had real fire, and
like
then
actual
this is just CGI
pyrotechnics
fire
that can be used.
Yeah. And I'm not saying Benedict Cumberbatch's dragon, I'm blanking on his name, but in the Hobbit movie, that looked good. I mean, the Game of Thrones dragons look good. But does it look as good as if you took an animatronic dragon and then maybe painted some stuff in CGI, but you add a live thing, and then you're getting real reactions? Because I imagine it's going to be so much easier for an actor to react to this giant animatronic thing than a dude in a motion capture suit.
Sure. Right.
Or, the Doctor Strange movie, where everything is it's in this fake CGI world, and your performances are suffering because it's like, oh, I'm supposed to move my hand and then like a portal comes out, and then over there is this like beast thing that's coming at me, or there's this eyeball thing that's attacking me and this girl, and it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, and you're losing something from that. And when you're in that world, when I'm watching this Doctor Strange movie, and I'm not saying it doesn't look bad. It looks good. It looks really good, but I know it's not real. Yeah. So it takes me out of it. Like, I feel like I might as well be in like a Disney cartoon, like watching The Lion King.
Like I said, like they have that.
Because it's all.
Yeah, it's all fake. Like, you have that scene. Like take that, for instance, like the scene, the big shootout. You know how that shot looks like it's very filmic. It's very just, this is what's happening, and it's a lot of special effects and crazy stunts and all that. But then you jump to like the opening scene of a Doctor Strange, and it's like, this doesn't even look real. Like it's not New York anymore. It's not, even with the Spider-Man movies, it just doesn't look like a real place anymore. You're not shooting on a location. Yeah. You're not shooting where, all right, we should do at least this scene here in the streets of New York, because again, cause Bunny, right? Let's just go back to the Atlanta studio or the Manhattan Beach studio here in LA, and we'll just put it all in digitally. And you lose something for sure with that.
You don't, because I mean, if you can fake a city for sure, but it's not going to look like a real city. And I mean, I know you can't have portals opening up out of people's hands and just coming out of thin air, and and these tentacle eyeball monsters. That's a lot of money, I'm sure, to create this animatronic thing that's going to move as fluidly and as quickly as it does in the movies, but yeah, it's exactly, when you're in this world, you're not. I think the stakes are lower because I know at any point anything can happen. Whereas, and I know you brought up Top Gun, if that's all real, and I'm like, holy shit, these are people doing real stunts. Like, there is that sense of danger, because I'm like, wow, this could really go wrong. So I don't look at it the same as a Doctor Strange because I'm like, no, these are real people and real airplanes.
Yeah,
and they could get blown the fuck up.
and of course we have to
So-
kind of look at the genre, look at the actual idea that Doctor Strange, sci-fi ish, more. Top Gun's still going. It's ultra realism, you know. But at the same time, you look at something like the Batman just did, the Matt Reeves version, where it was like that still felt more realistic. You know, it's funny, like you take that type of movie, you take the Nolan Batman, and then you mix it with like Zack Snyder's version, where it's like, yeah, but you need to have Superman who's crazy, do anything, Wonder Woman that can do it, and that's where it all starts to like unravel. You can't have Batman in kind of the real world setting and doing crazy shit that's real, but also then introduce crazy sci-fi, I guess. I don't know.
That's actually like a great point, and I wonder if that's what the struggle was with those Justice League movies, is because the Superman world is so different than the Batman world.
Right.
Just like the Wonder Woman world is different. It's just completely different, and you're mixing them in, and it's almost like it's like you're taking like an animated character and putting them with a Western character in like a musical, and it's like, what is going on? Like, it just doesn't.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't
if you look at the idea,
move
like
well
you
together.
said, like I mean, they were able to finagle it. Funny enough, that's the funny thing, because it is how Marvel was able to do that with all the Avengers from the get-go, where you could kind of see Winter Soldier and even Civil War a little bit, and Avengers, and it's like we're in that kind of it's not real, but we are, and now it's just changed completely. But yeah, I don't think Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder and they could figure that out at all.
And on a side note, you know, it's like, I mean, I don't know. I wonder if I think you said to me on a side note that the Marvel universe is cracking a little bit, and it's like, you know, I've kind of felt that way for a while. Like, I'm just sick of this stuff, and I kind of feel like Scorsese, where it's like, it's just a circus that this isn't real movies anymore.
Yeah.
But you also, with having this universe, you create so many, I don't even know if you'd call them plot holes, but like, when I watch the Doctor Strange thing, I'm like, why do they even need the Avengers? They could get the Scarlet Witch in there and just all the Avengers movies would be over in like 2 minutes. The Iron Man movie would be over in like 2 minutes. Get like Captain Marvel or whatever. Like you have these super powerful heroes. It's like, what do you need, Iron Man or the Hulk for? Like, you have.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do they all coexist? And it's like, where were they, when the world is about to get blown up by Ultron? Like, why don't you just get in the heavy hitters?
Yeah, and then they have to then use those like little like throwaway lines, like Captain Marvel has to be like, well, there's a lot more universes and planets than just Earth. It's like, oh, that's why I was there.
Sure, I guess. Yeah,
or there was that idea of like,
sorry guys.
It was funny too. I think we haven't brought this up. I think you're a big fan of The Boys, the Amazon show, and I never even knew anything about it. Like, I'm not a big comic book person. Like, I didn't know about a lot of that stuff. But it was sort of, there was a scene where someone gets really small, like an Ant-Man, and then goes somewhere and can explode someone. And that was a big thing that the internet was going, why didn't he just do that to Thanos? Just get small, get in, and blow him up.
Oh, that was like a meme. Yeah. Like, Ant-Man was going to go up Thanos' ass and then blow up. But then that might have been why The Boys did that, because they were like, all right, we got to give it to everybody. Because I don't know, they have some pretty good CGI for The Boys, but I want to say they do a lot of practical stuff, because they do that gross out stuff where they show somebody get like killed. Yeah, they got guts and things going all over, and it's like, oh my god.
But that's a great example of what we're saying is like, They don't do a ton of it. They keep it in that real world, if you will. But they're the ones that are straddling that line. I think The Boys show does that so well. It's like, we'll use the CGI, we'll use it when we need to. Homelander's got to like fly off, do this, that, or the other, or do some crazy stuff, but it's all still kind of in camera.
And for those that Homelander's basically like got Superman stuff. And I mean, when I see him do that Superman stuff in The Boys. I don't know what their budget is, but it looks just as good to me as the DC universe.
Well, it's
stuff,
Jeffy Bezos. Jeffy Bezos got a couple pennies. I think
I guess he's throwing some mad money into that thing.
Actually, I don't have any idea. He probably has no regard to that. Amazon Prime Video, all that stuff is probably that's been done with, as we've talked about too before. Well, someone else is dealing with all that stuff now.
Yeah, I'd be curious to go back to the first season of that, and then Stranger Things too, because I bet you the special effects are a lot more impressive now. Because The Boys is on its 3rd season, Stranger Things is on its 4th. Mm-hmm. Probably better, or more money's pumped into that now than it was, whatever the respective first seasons. But maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. I thought the special effects were good in both shows. And I know we just talked about Stranger Things, but there was another one that this season was the exception, but they had done a pretty good job of straddling the line between realistic and
being at an actual location. Even just like that idea, I think we're kind of like seeing that as, you can even make now a bar in the blue screen room or the green screen room or whatever. You could even be on a street on the blue screen or the green screen. And sure, I think like when they started Mandalorian or stuff like that with Disney, and they found a way to do it where we can actually just do that. Of course, that was with COVID and with all that other stuff. But again, I think like what we're saying is there's just something so cool about being on set at an actual location.
I do agree. I mean, and I don't think either one of us is saying CGI is bad necessarily. It's just an overuse of it, and use it sparingly, or use it for your appropriate things. Like I do agree, if you do an effect and then maybe you paint it or touch it up, and
we did the same thing for our movies. I mean, even for our little under $100,000 movies, it's like I can't get a squib to go like I got a guy's head gets blown off. I need the blood effect, but I can't pay for that. So it is, and we had stuff with Trip.
Yeah, we did
that needed just a little bit of follow up.
There was something where we needed some makeup touch ups, but when we had the blood in Trip, you can't. I mean, you can, but it's difficult.
It still looked great.
Blood, it's easier to do some of those things in real life. Because and I think that's a lot of the problems why as good as CGI is, you can never recreate a city or these certain things, because there's these little things like the way things move and shadows and all these things that are not quite there with CGI. Maybe never will be when they are with like real life. Like for instance, I mean, you take a movie like Scanners, which is dated now probably, but they have a guy's head blows off, and it's a camera trick. They kind of cut to like a watermelon or something. But you can't. But the illusion is there that the guy's head blows up, and you can't do that with CGI because of the way the chunks move and the way the way the video captures the moment. It's just like that's so difficult to recreate. Because it's like that's a live, real thing, and to get the little subtleties in the. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, I remember Scanners. I mean, I think all that stuff that we've seen, dude. I mean, maybe it's in 10 years, maybe it's in 15 years. I don't know when it's gonna be, but I do think that they might be able to do it where we have no clue, we have no idea. And the reason why I say that is because technology can get so much better that I would. Even for me, and maybe even for you, like we would have to watch, like if you were to be sat down and say, hey, which one was shot on 35 millimeter and which one was shot on a Red, which one was shot on the Alexa, we could fuck it up. I mean, it's that good nowadays where I don't know which one is film or digital.
That's true. Yeah, there's certain things that you could.
And if you add grain into those Alexa kind of has the deep blacks. I mean, so many Oscar-winning. Most of the movies that get up for cinematography Oscars nowadays are all Alexa or Red cameras.
Yeah. I could see it happen, and I don't know. There's certain things where I'm just like, it's difficult to do that and CGI.
I mean, look at the deep fakes too.
No, they can definitely do that.
I
was going to say the deepfake stuff is pretty crazy because that looks pretty realistic, and that thing they started with making people look younger is still not quite there yet, but that's pretty
not
impressive.
there yet. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but it's like, whoa, okay.
Yikes.
And I'd be interested to see, because right now, I mean, I'd say if you did, all the classic, horror movies, like we said, Werewolf in London, and you get like Gremlins or The Fly or these things like The Thing, where they have the actual practical. If you put that up against CGI now, I mean, I'm gonna point, even though yes, it looks kind of campy or maybe or like dated, I'm still gonna say that looks a little bit more realistic, because it's like a live, tangible thing on somebody's face.
Yeah, of
whereas
course.
like CGI is like,
you say Gremlins, I'm like, I know that's the big one for you. There's a third one. I'm like, I don't even know if they're gonna use animatronics or they're gonna go all digital.
Oh, the third Gremlins movie. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and we talked about that before. Like, I've mixed feelings about it. Like, I'm gonna watch it because I love Gremlins, but it's sort of like, it's also like, oh, just leave it alone. Like,
Oh yeah.
It's just, it's, I mean, I understand it's money, and we always joke about that, but like, sooner or later, you're running. I mean, you're exhausting these franchises that are already old, and we have no new ideas anymore. So what? 30 years from now, what are people going to go nostalgic about? Like, I mean, sooner or later, people are going to get tired of Star Wars. People are going to get tired of Star Trek and Marvel and Batman. I mean, they're already tired of it. Like, we're already like, oh God, another one of these? Like,
all right, dude. Well, it was a great talk. Guys, thanks for listening. If you want to, actually, we didn't do it on the Stranger Things, but hey, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check it out. We will do the audio on Spotify and Apple, 611 Films. We have 2 movies, Trip on Tubi TV and Psychos and Socios on Tubi TV if you're first seeing us. So check those out as well. And yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one.
see you on the flip side.
Peace.